Welcome to the deep dive. We've got your sources right here, and today we're tackling a system designed for managing mobile workforces. Think construction, field services, that kind of thing.
Yeah, environments where things can get pretty chaotic, right?
Exactly. We're doing a deep dive into something called SiteGrid Connect.
And looking at these sources, it seems aimed squarely at replacing some, well, let's say traditional methods. Stuff like manual time cards, physical keys.
Things that cause headaches, basically, like buddy punching, lost keys, unsecured gear.
Or just not knowing who's actually on the site.
Right. So our goal today is to really unpack SiteGrid Connect. What is it? How does it work? What are the claimed benefits? I'm definitely curious how you take that, messy reality and replace it with a digital system.
And the sources really push this idea of bringing order and accountability, getting a handle on things when your office moves around every day.
Okay, so let's start high level. The sources describe SiteGrid Connect as this comprehensive integrated solution.
Not just a few separate tools, but one system.
And specifically for small to medium businesses in fields like construction, trades, field service, logistics, even event management or landscaping,
Yeah.
anywhere you've got crews out and about.
Yeah, the core problem is pretty clear. Ditching those old ways of tracking time, controlling access, communicating on-site, ways that are often, frankly, inefficient and not very secure.
It's like goodbye clipboard, goodbye key ring.
Pretty much. And they keep mentioning this concept of creating a secure, closed-loop, kind of self-sufficient bubble over each job site.
A bubble. Okay, what does that actually mean, practically speaking?
Well, that bubble idea is really central. It means the system is designed to rely as little as possible on outside stuff at the job site, so employees aren't using their personal phones for critical things.
Right.
And crucially, it doesn't need to connect to, say, the client's Wi-Fi, which might be unreliable or, not secure.
Oh, wait, it builds its own network right there on the site, a private network.
Exactly. Its own dedicated, secure network infrastructure at each location.
Why is that so important? Why isolate it like that?
Well, think about those sites. Network access can be spotty, right? And security is the big deal when you're talking about who gets in or tracking work hours.
It's true.
So by creating its own private network, SiteGrid Connect ensures it's reliable and all its own communication stays internal and safe. No interference from outside networks, no potential security holes there.
Got it. It creates its own little reliable world on the job site. And the sources claim this leads to unparalleled accountability, security, and operational efficiency. Basically, turning the site into a controlled zone.
That seems to be the end game, yeah. Control and visibility right there within the site boundary.
So how does it build and manage this bubble? The sources talk about two main environments, right? Connected but distinct.
That's right. You've got the on-site environment and then the central management environment.
Let's start with the on-site environment. That's the actual bubble itself.
Precisely. It's the local network set up at the specific job site. It uses SiteGrid's own hardware, the fobs and locks we'll get into, and they talk to each other within that private network.
Okay. And the sources highlight this Site Control Supervisor app.
Yeah.
It runs on a supervisor's phone. And it's like the on-site brain.
Yeah, on-site server and gateway is how they put it. It runs on a designated supervisor phone, and it handles a lot of the immediate stuff happening locally, like clock-ins, unlock requests.
And how does that local stuff get back to the main office system?
Ah, that's clever.
Yeah.
It uses the supervisor's phone's own cellular connection to sync all that data back to the central server.
So the job site itself doesn't need its own internet line. Just the supervisor's phone needs a signal.
Exactly. And that builds in resilience. If the supervisor's phone temporarily loses cell signal, the sources say the site can keep running semi-autonomously.
How does that work?
The supervisor app just queues up the data, who clocked in, what lock open, and sends it all when the connection comes back.
That's smart. So work doesn't grind to a halt if the signal drops for 5 minutes. Things keep working based on the rules the app already has.
And everything syncs up later. So the other piece is the central management environment.
All right, the cloud part. Access through a web portal. The SiteGrid management portal.
And this is where the office staff, the owners, the admins do their thing.
They call it the single source of truth, right?
Exactly. All the master data lives there. Employee records, schedules, who can open which lock, the payroll data, and importantly, a full log of everything that happens across all sites.
So setup, configuration, big picture view that all happens in the portal.
It's the main control center and reporting hub.
Okay, let's dive into the actual pieces, the hardware and software components.
Sure. Hardware first. There's the SiteGrid fob.
This is what each employee carries. It's pretty rugged in the descriptions. Pocket-sized, keypad, small screen, like a digital ID badge.
Yeah, designed for tough environments.
Hmm.
And the tech inside is interesting. It has 2 radios, Wi-Fi to connect to that on-site mesh network bubble,
Uh-huh.
and also Bluetooth Low Energy, BLE.
Okay, Wi-Fi for the network. BLE for talking to the locks, I assume.
Almost. The sources are really specific here. The fob uses Wi-Fi to talk to the supervisor app over the mesh network. But it's actually the supervisor app that uses BLE to talk to the smart locks.
Wait, really? The fob doesn't talk directly to the lock. Why set it up that way?
That's a key security design choice, apparently. It means the decision to unlock something isn't just made by the fob.
Okay.
The fob sends the request to the supervisor app. The app then checks its local data. Is this employee allowed to open this lock right now? Based on schedules, permissions, all synced from the central system.
Ah. So the app makes the call based on the rules.
Exactly. And only if the app says yes, then it sends the command via BLE to the lock to actually open.
Okay, that makes way more sense. The app is the smart gatekeeper on site. Keeps the authorization logic secure and centralized in the app, not scattered around.
Precisely. So back to the fob itself, it's used for clocking in and out, yeah, and it can receive simple text messages from the supervisor.
Like quick updates or instructions.
Seems like it, yeah. One-way messages. And it initiates those unlock requests we just talked about. But for things like unlocking, the employee has to enter their personal PIN code on the fob's keypad.
Okay, so fob plus PIN code.
Yeah.
That sounds like proper two-factor security. Something you have the fob and something you know the code.
That's exactly the point they make. And another interesting bit, the ping function.
Right. The supervisor can ping a fob silently.
Yeah, from their app. If they need to check who's who or confirm someone's on site, they can ping the fob. The fob just sends back its unique serial number to the app. No beep, no flashing light. Doesn't disturb the worker at all.
Huh. Why would you need that? Stealth verification.
The sources suggest it's for quick, on-demand checks, maybe on a big site, or you need to confirm who's working in a certain area without walking over and interrupting. It's a system-verified status check, basically.
Interesting. Non-disruptive oversight. And the Wi-Fi details for the fob to join the mesh network are hidden, right? Embedded, so the employee doesn't know them.
Yep. Another part of keeping that closed loop secure. Okay, next hardware. The SiteGrid Smart Lock.
The actual physical locks for toolboxes, trailers, gates, doors, proprietary, battery-powered, tamper-resistant. Good that they have physical master key override, too.
Yeah, that emergency override is crucial. And like we discussed, technology-wise, they only talk via BLE and only to the Site Control Supervisor app. They just sit there listening for a verified command from the app.
Low-power listening mode, waiting for instructions.
Correct. The permissions who can open that's all managed centrally in the web portal and sync down to the supervisor's app. The lock itself doesn't store all those complex rules. It just trusts the app.
Keeps the intelligence separate from the physical lock. Makes sense. And the SiteGrid mesh router.
That's the thing that actually creates the private Wi-Fi bubble on site. Portable, industrial-grade router. Supervisor sets it up each day, powers it on.
Its main job is just making that secure Wi-Fi network happen.
Exactly. It provides that dedicated, secure Wi-Fi network for the fobs and the supervisor app to communicate reliably and securely on the site. That isolation is key. It's the network foundation for everything happening locally.
Okay, shifting to software. We've talked a fair bit about the Site Control Supervisor app already.
Right. Runs on the supervisor's approved smartphone, connects to that mesh network from the router, acts as that vital on-site gateway and protocol bridge.
Transloading between the fob's Wi-Fi and the lock's BLE.
And you mentioned it holds local authority. What does that mean it can do if, say, the cell signal is gone?
Good question.
Yeah.
Because it syncs and keeps a local copy of important stuff, who's allowed where, schedules, fob status, it can make those real-time decisions on site without constantly phoning home to the central server. It knows if Jane Doe is scheduled and allowed to open lock 123, even if the phone's got no bars at that exact moment. It uses the last synced data to authorize clock-ins, lock openings.
Okay, so it's really built for the reality of dodgy connectivity on some sites. Seems like it. Built-in resilience. It's also the supervisor's main interface, right? Sending messages, doing those status pings, seeing what's happening locally. And yeah, using the phone's cellular data to sync everything up and down with the main portal.
And that brings us to the final software piece, the SiteGrid Management Portal.
The big cloud-based web app. Accessed from a computer by the admins, the owners, it's the command center for the whole operation across all sites.
What kind of tasks happen in the portal?
Pretty much everything administrative. Personnel management, setting up employees, assigning fobs, setting pins, scheduling, putting in work schedules, which the system then uses for authorization checks on site.
Right, through the supervisor app.
Exactly. Access control, this sounds really granular, defining exactly who can open which lock, maybe even restricting access to certain times, payroll and reporting, reviewing the digital timesheets from the fobs, exporting data for payroll, and system admin stuff like managing the hardware itself, activating new gear, or, really importantly, instantly deactivating a lost fob.
Instantly disable a lost fob. That seems huge.
Yeah, and monitoring device status, viewing the audit log.
The audit log, you've mentioned that a few times.
Yeah.
How detailed is comprehensive? What gets tracked?
The sources really emphasize this. They say every single action is logged, timestamp. So clock ins, clock outs, yeah, but also every single attempt to open a lock, whether it worked or not. Every supervisor ping, every message sent through the system, it creates what they call an indisputable record of site activity, tied to specific people, devices, locations.
Okay, indisputable record. That sounds significant.
Yeah.
And it ties directly into the benefits they claim, right?
Absolutely. Let's connect those dots. First big area, workforce and payroll management.
Okay, so verified time and attendance. If you need your specific fob and your personal PN to clock in, that pretty much kills buddy punching, doesn't it?
It makes it significantly harder, yes. The clock in is tied to that physical device and the private code, so it strongly verifies who is clocking in, which leads to accurate payroll.
And automated timesheets. No more manual entry errors or chasing paper.
Right, simplifies the whole payroll process because the data is already digital and organized in the management portal, ready to review and export.
And you mentioned it integrates schedules from the portal.
Yeah, that schedule data gets synced to the supervisor app, and the app can use it on site to double-check authorization. Are you actually scheduled to be here right now when you're trying to clock in or open something?
So it's not just if you have permission, but when you have permission too.
It adds that time-based layer of verification, potentially.
Okay, next big benefit area. Job site security and access control.
This is where the fob does double duty as the key. Same device for time and access. Streamlines things, makes it seamless, secure.
And that PIN needed for the lock access. That's the two-factor security again. Something you have, something you know.
Definitely a step up from just a physical key anyone could potentially copy or find. And maybe the killer feature here, instant revocation.
Ah, yes, the lost fob scenario. Or someone leaves the company.
Exactly. From the management portal, click a button, that fob is instantly dead. Can't be used for time tracking, can't be used to open any lock on any site. Immediately.
That is huge. No more chasing down keys, no expensive rekeying jobs. Access is just cut off. Instantly.
Solves a major security headache right there. Third benefit area they talk about, real-time oversight and accountability.
Back to those silent pings. Supervisors checking status without bothering people.
Exactly. Use the app, ping the fob over the mesh network. Fob responds silently with its ID. App tells the supervisor who it is and if they're currently scheduled or authorized. Real-time, non-disruptive check.
Efficient way to just confirm who's where and who's supposed to be there.
Provides that management visibility. And underpinning all its oversight
is the comprehensive audit trail.
That indisputable record again. Every clock in, every lock attempt, success or fail. Remember, every ping, every system message, all logged with who, what, where, when.
Creates a detailed history of everything. Seems invaluable for accountability, right? But also for sorting out disputes, like when did you actually arrive or who opened that container?
Absolutely. It takes away the he said, she said. The system log provides verified data points for those events.
Okay, let's make it even more real. The sources give examples. Employee clocking in, what does that look like?
Pretty simple. Employee takes their fob, hits a button, enters their PIN in. The fob shoots its ID and the clock in command over the site's private Wi-Fi mesh.
To the supervisor's phone.
Right, to the site control app. The app timestamps it, maybe shows a confirmation on the supervisor's screen, and then cues it to sync back to the main portal later via cell signal.
Straightforward. Now, unlocking a lock. Walk me through that again, especially with the app being the middleman.
Okay. Employee, with their authorized friend, walks up to a smart lock. They initiate the unlock on the fob, maybe press a button sequence and enter their PIN on, two-factor off. The fob then sends an authenticated unlock request specifying which lock plus its own ID over the Wi-Fi mesh to the site control app.
Request hits the app and then lock.
And then the app does its check. Using the permission rules it has synced locally, it asks, is this fob, meaning this employee, allowed to open this specific lock at this specific time.
The live authorization check happens right there on the supervisor's phone.
Correct. If the check passes, if they are authorized, the app then turns around and sends the open command directly to the smart lock via Bluetooth Low Energy.
Ah, the BLE connection from app to lock.
Yep. The lock gets the command from the trusted app and pop, it opens. And the whole thing, fob request, app check, app command, lock opening, gets logged and synced.
That architecture really does seem to prioritize security and control.
Yeah.
The app holds the keys to the kingdom, so to speak.
Puts the decision-making power in a controlled, synced place. And that's stealth ping workflow.
Right, the silent check.
Supervisor starts it in their app, selects an employee, hits check status. The app sends a silent send ID command over the Wi-Fi mesh to that employee's fob.
Silent, meaning the employee has no idea.
That's the idea. The fob is programmed just to respond instantly to that command by sending its serial number back to the app. Again, over the mesh, no indication on the fob itself.
Okay.
The app gets the serial number, looks up the employee name, and checks their current schedule status from its local data and shows the result to the supervisor, like Bob Smith scheduled. And of course, that interaction is logged too.
A really quiet way to verify presence and authorization on a busy site.
Gives supervisors that discrete oversight tool.
Okay, pulling back again. Who is this system really for? The sources listed specific industries.
Yeah, they stress it's for any business with teams out in the field working in dynamic places, construction GCs, skilled trades electricians, plumbers, HVAC field service crews, landscapers.
Logistics, remote warehouses, event security too, right?
Mm-hmm. Basically, anyone whose workforce is mobile, dispersed across different locations, and who's probably struggling now with reliable time tracking, securing assets and sites, and just knowing what's going on.
The company's still using paper, keys, and maybe trusting folks a bit too much.
Exactly. Those manual, often error-prone methods are what this integrated digital approach is designed to completely replace.
Well, this has been a really thorough deep dive into SiteGrid Connect. It's definitely clear it's built around the unique problems of mobile work, creating this controlled environment for time, access, and knowing what's happening.
Yeah, by pulling everything ID, time, access, oversight into one dedicated private system, it tackles those big gaps in security and efficiency you see with the old ways. It really is a push towards digital, verifiable management on site.
And thinking about that audit trail, that indisputable record of absolutely everything, it makes you wonder, if you have that level of detailed verified proof for every clock in, every door opening, every action on site, how does that change things? Not just making operations smoother, but what about trust? What about resolving disagreements, both inside the company and maybe even with your clients? What does having that kind of data actually do to the dynamics on the ground? What stands out to you there?